Imagine walking through a place where time itself seems to have stopped, where the echoes of the past linger in every shadow, and the very walls seem to whisper secrets of those who came before. Today, we're exploring 10 of the world's most haunting abandoned places, locations where tragedy, mystery, and the supernatural collide in ways that will leave you questioning what's really out there in the darkness. From ghost towns frozen in time to asylums that harbor unspeakable horrors, these aren't just empty buildings, they're monuments to human stories that refuse to be forgotten. So dim the lights, because we're about to count down the most spine-chilling abandoned places on Earth. Number 10. Pripyat, Ukraine, the city that died in a single day. In 1986, the bustling Soviet city of Pripyat became the world's most famous ghost town overnight, home to nearly 50,000 residents who worked at the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. This modern city was evacuated within 36 hours of the reactor explosion on April 26th. What makes Pripyat truly haunting isn't just its radioactive contamination, it's the eerie preservation of everyday life. Dolls still sit in cribs, books remain open on desks, and the famous Ferris wheel in the amusement park stands as a rusted monument to dreams that never came true. The park was scheduled to open just days after the disaster. Urban explorers who ventured into the exclusion zone report an overwhelming sense of being watched. Radiation detectors clicking ominously in the background. They've captured footage of swaying trees with no wind and shadows that seem to move independently. Local guides speak of the Chernobyl spirits, the restless souls of those who died from radiation sickness, forever tied to the place that killed them. Number 9. Belitz-Heilstätten, Germany, where healing became horror. Built in 1898 as a tuberculosis sanatorium, Belitz-Heilstätten once housed over 1,200 patients in what was considered a medical marvel of its time. The sprawling complex of 60 buildings served as a beacon of hope for those suffering from the White Death that plagued Europe. But hope turned to nightmare during both World Wars, when the facility was converted into a military hospital. It was here that a young Adolf Hitler recovered from a gas attack in 1916. Later, Soviet forces took control, using it to treat their wounded, until 1994. The abandoned pavilions now stand as decaying monuments to medical experimentation and wartime horrors. Paranormal investigators report disembodied screams echoing through the tuberculosis wards, the sound of gurneys rolling down empty hallways, and the shadowy figures of patients and soldiers who never left. Local legends speak of the Surgeon, a ghostly figure seen performing operations in the old operating theatre, forever trying to save patients who died decades ago. Number 8. Poveglia Island, Italy, the island built on bones. Located in the Venetian lagoon, Poveglia Island holds the gruesome distinction of being one of the world's most haunted places. For over 100 years, from 1793 to 1814, this small island served as a quarantine station for plague victims. An estimated 160,000 people died here, their bodies burned in massive pyres. In 1922, a mental hospital was built on the island, where a sadistic doctor allegedly performed horrific experiments on patients. Legend says he went mad himself, eventually throwing himself from the hospital's bell tower. The bell tower still stands, though locals claim it rings on its own during foggy nights. The soil of Poveglia is literally composed of 50% human ash. Fishermen refuse to fish in the surrounding waters, claiming their nets bring up human bones. The few brave souls who've landed on the island report an immediate sense of dread, the smell of burning flesh with no source, and ghostly apparitions of plague victims wandering the beaches. The Italian government has banned public access, but that hasn't stopped the legends from growing. Number 7. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, the birthplace of solitary confinement. When Eastern State Penitentiary opened in 1829, it pioneered a revolutionary concept: complete isolation to inspire penance. Prisoners were kept in total solitude, wearing hoods whenever they left their cells. The psychological torture was so severe that even Charles Dickens called it rigid, strict, and hopeless. The prison closed in 1971, but the suffering within its walls seems to have left an indelible mark. Cell Block 12 is particularly notorious mysterious. Visitors report shadow figures darting between cells, disembodied laughter, and the sound of footsteps in empty corridors. One guard tower is said to be haunted by a figure locals call the shadow figure, a dark silhouette that appears in photographs but vanishes when approached. Former inmates who survived decades of isolation left behind stories of the visitors, ghostly figures who would appear in their cells, sometimes offering comfort, sometimes bringing terror. Ghost hunters regularly document unexplained voices, temperature drops, and electromagnetic anomalies throughout the facility. The most chilling reports come from Cell Block 6, where visitors claim to hear the desperate scratching of fingernails against stone walls. Number 6. Chateau Miranda, Belgium, the castle that died with its secrets. Known as the Château de Noisy, this 19th-century neo-Gothic castle was built in 1866 for the Liedekerke Beaufort family. After World War II, it served as an orphanage run by the National Railway Company of Belgium until 1980. The building was then abandoned to the elements, becoming a magnet for urban explorers and ghost hunters. What makes Château Miranda particularly unsettling are the reports from its orphanage years. Former staff members spoke of children who would disappear for days, only to be found in parts of the castle that should have been inaccessible. Some children claimed to have friends in the walls, voices that would guide them through secret passages. Explorers who ventured into the decaying castle report piano music echoing from the music room where no piano exists. The grand staircase is said to be haunted by the Grey Lady, a figure in Victorian dress who glides between floors. Most disturbing are the children's voices heard throughout the building, laughing and playing games in rooms that have been empty for decades. The castle was finally demolished in 2017, but locals claim the hauntings have simply moved to the surrounding forest. Number 5. Hashima Island, Japan, the concrete coffin in the sea. Once the most densely populated place on Earth, Hashima Island, nicknamed Battleship Island for its ship-like silhouette, housed over 5,000 coal miners and their families on just 16 acres. When the coal ran out in 1974, the island was abandoned overnight, leaving behind a perfectly preserved snapshot of mid-20th century life. But Hashima's history is darker than its abandonment suggests. During World War II, Korean and Chinese laborers were forced to work in the underwater coal mines under brutal conditions. Hundreds died from exhaustion, malnutrition, and mining accidents. Their bodies were allegedly thrown into the sea around the island. Modern visitors report an overwhelming sense of despair that seems to emanate from the very concrete structures. The apartment buildings, still filled with personal belongings, echo with sounds of daily life, televisions turning on by themselves, children's laughter from empty playgrounds, and the rhythmic sound of mining equipment that was removed decades ago. Photographers have captured unexplained figures in windows of buildings that are structurally unsound and impossible to enter. Local fishermen avoid the waters around Hashima, claiming the spirits of the forced laborers still guard the island. Number 4. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Kentucky, the sanatorium that became a house of horrors. Built in 1910 to combat the tuberculosis epidemic ravaging Kentucky, Waverly Hills Sanatorium was designed to house 40-50 patients. By the 1930s, it held over 400 souls desperately fighting the White Plague. An estimated 63,000 people died within its walls, their bodies removed through the infamous body chute, a 500-foot tunnel that led directly to the railroad tracks below. The experimental treatments practiced at Waverly were often as deadly as the disease itself. Patients underwent lung removal surgery, exposure to dangerous ultraviolet light, and balloon treatments that frequently resulted in suffocation. Room 502, where a pregnant nurse hanged herself after discovering she had tuberculosis, is considered the epicenter of paranormal activity. Ghost hunters have documented some of the most compelling evidence of supernatural activity at Waverly Hills. The shadow people, dark figures that dart through hallways, are captured regularly on camera. Visitors report being touched by invisible hands, hearing their names called by disembodied voices, and witnessing full-body apparitions of patients still wandering the halls. The elevator operates on its own, stopping at floors where the sickest patients once lay dying. Most unsettling is the children's area, where the laughter and crying of young tuberculosis victims can still be heard echoing through empty wards. Number 3. Aokigahara Forest, Japan, the forest where souls go to disappear. At the base of Mount Fuji lies Aokigahara, a dense woodland known worldwide as the Suicide Forest. This 14-square-mile forest has become synonymous with death, attracting hundreds of people each year who enter with no intention of leaving. The dense trees grow so closely together that wind cannot penetrate, creating an eerie silence that seems to muffle all sound. What makes Aokigahara truly haunting isn't just its grim reputation, it's the forest's apparent supernatural properties. Compasses spin wildly, GPS devices fail, and cell phone signals vanish completely. Visitors report an overwhelming sense of being watched and followed by unseen presences. The trees themselves seem to twist into unnatural shapes, and many visitors become disoriented within minutes of entering. Japanese folklore speaks of yurei, angry spirits who died in emotional turmoil and are trapped between worlds. Rangers and volunteers who patrol the forest report encounters with ghostly figures who plead for help, only to vanish when approached. The most disturbing accounts come from those who found personal belongings scattered throughout the forest, belongings that seem to move on their own, as if their former owners are still there, trying to communicate with the living. The Japanese government has installed signs throughout the forest encouraging people to seek help, but the supernatural legends continue to grow. Number 2. Kolmanskop, Namibia, the diamond town that time forgot. In 1908, a railway worker found a diamond glittering in the Namib desert sand, sparking a diamond rush that created the boom town of Kolmanskop. By 1912, it was producing 11.7% of the world's diamonds, and the German colonial town boasted a hospital, ballroom, power station, school, theater, and even an ice factory, luxuries unimaginable in the African desert. But when richer diamond deposits were discovered elsewhere, Kolmanskop was abandoned by 1954. The Namib Desert immediately began reclaiming the town, with sand dunes pouring through windows and doors, creating surreal interior landscapes where buildings are half buried in pristine sand. What makes Kolmanskop truly eerie isn't just its ghostly appearance, it's the reports from photographers and tourists who visit the town. Locals speak of the diamond ghosts, the spirits of miners who died in cave-ins and are still searching for the perfect stone. Visitors report hearing piano music from the ballroom, where sand has buried the instrument to its top. The hospital is said to be haunted by a German doctor who refused to leave when the town was evacuated. Photographers have captured unexplained lights moving through the sand-filled rooms at night, and many report feeling an overwhelming sadness that seems to emanate from the buried buildings themselves. Number 1. Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town that's been burning for over 60 years. Beneath the streets of Centralia burns a fire that has raged since 1962, when a routine trash burning ignited an exposed coal seam. What was once a thriving mining town of over 1,000 residents has become a virtual ghost town, with only 5 people remaining as of 2020. The underground fire has created a post-apocalyptic landscape where the ground itself is the enemy. The fire burns across 400 acres, reaching temperatures of over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Toxic gases seep through cracks in the earth, creating deadly sinkholes that can swallow cars and buildings without warning. Steam rises from the ground like the breath of some sleeping monster, and the smell of sulfur permeates the air. The famous Graffiti Highway, a section of abandoned Route 61, has become a pilgrimage site for urban explorers seeking to witness this man-made hell. But Centralia's true horror lies in the reports from those brave enough to walk its empty streets. Residents who fled tell stories of voices calling from beneath the ground, the voices of miners who died in the tunnels decades before the fire began. The few remaining houses creak and groan as the underground inferno shifts the earth beneath them. Visitors report seeing figures in mining gear walking through the smoke and steam, and the sound of pickaxes striking coal echoing from deep underground. Scientists estimate the fire could burn for another 250 years, making Centralia a monument to humanity's ability to create its own version of hell on Earth. These 10 locations remind us that some places never truly die. They simply transform into something else entirely. Whether you believe in ghosts, supernatural phenomena, or simply the power of human tragedy to leave an indelible mark on a place, these abandoned locations continue to captivate and terrify us. The next time you pass an abandoned building or hear about a ghost town, remember that every empty place has a story to tell, and sometimes those stories refuse to be forgotten, no matter how much time passes or how far we try to distance ourselves from the past.